Hello everybody and welcome back to Natalie Reads. My name is Natalie and welcome to my July TBR. So in July I should hopefully be able to get a lot of reading done because I'm on summer break. I won't really have to be doing that much schoolwork. I'm going to start a little bit of summer work and stuff, but it shouldn't be too much. I know I'm going to be on vacation for at least 2 weeks in July. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be away for more than that, but I know it's going to be at least 2 weeks. One of the places I'm going, I should be able to get plenty of reading done. The other, I should be able to get some, but I'm going to be a bit more busy. So yeah, that's pretty much everything that's happening in July. And now let's get into the stack of books that I want to read. So the first thing I want to read in July is I want to continue reading One Piece. One Piece is the manga series that I have been reading since October of last year, maybe October or September, I'm not 100% sure. At the time of filming this, I think I'm currently on volume 40, but by the time this video goes up, I may be further on in the series. I don't know what my goal is in July. I don't know what a realistic goal would be for reading in July. There's part of me that really wants to get to like what's considered halfway through, halfway through the series, although technically that it's more than half of what volumes are published so far because there's 99 volumes published at the moment. I'm on volume 40 and volume 60 something is kind of considered to be the halfway point of the series. Now, I know what you're thinking. Natalie, how in the world are you going to read 20 volumes of One Piece when you've managed to only read like 40 over a 10-month period? Well, I'm like reading a lot more than I was before. In like the last week, I've managed to read like 10 volumes or something crazy like that. So I think it's not the most insane thing ever trying to get through halfway by the end of July, but it may still be insane. The next book I want to read is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. This is the second book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and I read the first book, Game of Thrones, last month, and I absolutely loved it, so I just want to move right on to the next book. I don't really know how to describe Game of Thrones. It's a multi-perspective fantasy book that's mainly following this one family, the Stark family, who rules over a certain part of this kingdom, and at the beginning of the series, the king comes to visit Ned, who's the ruler of the family, and is like, hey, my old hand died, like assistant, like right hand kind of person. I want you to be my new person. He comes, becomes the new hand of the king. But there's a lot of politicking stuff going on because the king's wife is like, her family is very suspicious. They want more power. There's some uneasiness about the death of the old hand of the king, thinking that he may have been murdered. And it's very political, and it's literally is a Game of Thrones, seeing who's gonna end up on the throne. I absolutely love the first book in the series. All the characters were really interesting to read from. Not only did we read from members in the Stark family, but we also read from different people spanning the entire world, and I absolutely loved it. I feel like I know so much about these characters. I have such strong emotions on whether I like them or I dislike them, or I'm conflicted on how I feel about them. I feel like George R.R. Martin did a great job of developing in the first book, and the world seems really interesting, and I'm really excited to continue on with this series in A Clash of Kings, although this is 730-ish pages, which is very long and very intimidating. Adding another very large and intimidating fantasy book to my TBR, I want to read Royal Assassin, which is the second book in the Farseer trilogy and also the second book in the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. So I'm currently, at the moment, reading Assassin's Apprentice, and I'm really enjoying it, and I just know I'm going to want to jump straight into Royal Assassin afterwards, because kind of with Game of Thrones, continuing the momentum and not letting too much time pass in between series, especially as these are larger books, I don't want to leave too long where I feel I need to reread the first book in the series to fully understand what's happening. In the Farseer trilogy, we're following Fitz, who is the bastard son of the king-in-waiting, and the first 6 or so years of his life, he's raised by his mother and his grandfather. However, when he reaches, I think, 6, his grandfather says, all right, I'm done raising you, and drops him off at a keep, basically saying, you're going to go live with your real father now. However, when Fitz's father, Prince Chivalry, finds out that Fitz is coming to him, he quickly abdicates and moves to the countryside with his wife, leaving Fitz in an awkward position. The next few years he spends with the stable master Borge. However, the king then starts to take interest in Fitz and decides that Fitz is in a very unique position where he's part of the nobility but doesn't really fit in, and is also kind of a commoner but isn't fully commoner, so he's able to walk the line between the two groups of people, and decides Fitz is going to become an assassin, and we're following Fitz from there. I'm enjoying it so much. This series is told from first person, so you're just in Fitz's head, seeing everything. It's all very interesting. I think Robin Hobb is an amazing writer for what I've read so far, and I want to move right on into Royal Assassin. Next, I want to reread The Poppy War. So The Poppy War is my favorite series of all time. This series is just absolutely fabulous. I love it, and so I want to reread it and relive the amazingness of it. So in The Poppy War, we're following Ren, who's an orphan in the South countryside, and she decides that she is going to apply to the military academy to try to get away from her family, who she doesn't like. And everyone thinks Ren is not going to succeed. You know, she's a peasant, she's an orphan. No one thinks she's smart enough to pass this test. However, not only does Ren pass the test, but she does so well that she gets to go to the main military academy in the capital of their country. But life there is not easy. Ren is an outcast there, and things are very hard for her. But then she and her classmates have to put everything they know aside because war comes to their empire and they have to go to war. And learning how to go to war is very different from actually going to war. I absolutely love this book. It's so dark and it makes you think and, you know, puts you in these horrible situations where there's no good option, but, you know, Rin has to pick a choice, but you know she has to, but neither of the options are good, so you don't want her to pick either of the options. And it's just amazingly complex, and this book tugs at your heartstrings. You fall in love with the characters, even though you know they're doing things that you don't like or you don't agree with, but you know they have to. So I absolutely love this book, and I cannot wait to reread it. The next book is a classic, which I don't read much of, but I actually have two on my TBR this month. I'll get to the second one later, but the first one on my TBR is Crime and Punishment by, I cannot say this man's name. He is Russian. I can't say Russian names. I mean, I actually can. I just haven't learned how to say this guy's name. So, Crime and Punishment. Do I know what it's about? Not really. I think it's like a cat and mouse game, but don't take me at face value for that. But I just want to read this because I remember when I knew what it was about and I heard people talking about it, I thought it would be something I was going to really enjoy. And I'm always looking for classics that I think I'm actually going to enjoy and want to read. And I think this is going to be very interesting. It is on the longer side. It's like 450 pages, the copy I have. But I think if I really dedicate time and read it, it shouldn't take me too long. So yeah, I'm really excited to read this. I don't know a whole lot about what it's about, but I think it's going to be good, and I think I'm really going to enjoy it. Everything I've heard about this book is that it's really good, so hopefully those people were not lying. Another series that I want to read this month is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This book is a reread, but I also want to read Our Violent Ends this month, which I have not read before, and I want to reread These Violent Delights before reading Our Violent Ends, and I want to do it this month so I can finish out this series. It's only a duology, but I know kind of books in the same world are coming out later this year, so I want to have read the series before I pick those up. So in These Violent Delights, we follow Juliet and Roma, who are members of rival gang families in Shanghai in the 1920s. They are former lovers, reunited, and they have to work together because a mysterious monster or illness is killing people in both of their gangs, and unless they cooperate and try to figure out what's going on, there will be no family for either of them, so they have to cooperate and work together despite not liking each other. I absolutely love this book the first time I read it, and I'm sure it's going to be just as good on reread. The next book I want to read is Bloody Heart by Sophie Lark, which is the fourth book in the Brutal Birthright series, which is following basically the mafia in Chicago. There's mainly two rival families, but we've kind of been introduced to the idea that there are other mafia families in Chicago as well. I know this is a second chance romance between Dante of one family, and I want to say, I don't know. It's a second chance romance, I know that. I've actually read the first 5%, I think, of this book, which was good. I just had other stuff I wanted to read more at the time, so I put it down. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this series. The last book I didn't love as much, but I'm really hoping that book 4 will be amazing. So I want to read that this month. I also want to read All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I absolutely love Mariana Zapata. She's one of my favorite romance authors. I've read 3 books by her, and all of them are absolutely amazing, with one of them actually being my favorite romance of all time. All Roads Lead Here is her newest release. I think it came out last year, maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. And I don't totally know what this book is about. I know we're following our main character who, for whatever reason, decides to briefly move away from where she lives, and so she rents an Airbnb. But when she gets there, she realizes that she the person who rented her the Airbnb was not who they said they were, and they were actually the son of the person who owns this house, and his son just rented out his garage or something like that. And so the man, whose name I'm assuming is Rode, is not very happy about our main character being here, but she paid money, so she stays there, and she starts to get into his heart, and they start to bond and fall in love. I'm assuming. Like I said, I don't wholly know what this book is about, but I think it's kind of about that. So yeah, I'm really excited. I know this book is going to be long and a slow burn, but sometimes that's all you need. And I'm really excited to read it because I've loved everything I've ever read from Mariana Zapata. In July, I also plan to do a 24-hour readathon, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to read, so I'm going to continue on with this idea of rereading a whole series in 24 hours. And I have 2 options for my next readathon. The first option is the Gallagher Girls series by Ellie Carter. This is not the first book, this is actually the 5th book, but it's what I own. I absolutely love this series. This is one of my favorite early YA series, because the series is YA, but it strays more on the younger side than some other series of YA. So I absolutely love the series. It's following these girls at a spy school, and everything they get up to. The first book is more of an isolated book. We're just introducing you to the world, but from books 2 to 6, there is a greater plot that ensnarls you, and the romance at the center of the series is one that I absolutely love. So I'm either doing this or Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead, which is, once again, about a school, but instead of learning to be spies, it's for vampires, and the series is all about Rose, who is kind of the caretaker of Lisa, who's vampire royalty, basically, and all the politics that happen at the academy. I'm probably not going to do Vampire Academy this month, but I think I'm going to do one in August, so I'll maybe read that one there. But it is a possibility. It'll probably end up being whichever one I feel like on the day. Next, I have 2 sci-fi fantasy series that I want to start this month. The first one is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. Listen, I have no idea what this book's about. I know I've read the synopsis multiple times, and every time I read it, I go, oh, that sounds interesting, but it never stays in my brain. I've heard really good things about it. It's a trilogy, so it's not horribly long, so it's not a series that's going to take me absolutely forever to read, even though the books are on the chunkier side. And I really want to start this month, so I'm going to read the Goodreads synopsis for it. Willie, charming Gunu Geru, and a bandit, and stern, fearless Mata, the son of a deposed duke, seem like polar opposites. Yet, in the uprising against the emperor, the two quickly become the best of friends after a series of adventures fighting against vast conscripted armies, silk-drawn airships, and shape-shifting gods. Once the emperor has been overthrown, however, they each find themselves the leader of separate factions, 2 sides with very different ideas about how the world should be run and the meaning of justice. So yeah, this book sounds like it's going to be really interesting. We're going to have war probably, and then politics, which I always enjoy in my fantasy series. I think this one's more of a mix of fantasy and sci-fi, so I'm super excited to read it, and it is long, but I think it's going to be very good. The next sci-fi book I want to read, I also don't know a whole lot about, but the final book in this trilogy comes out in September, so I want to get caught up in the series before the final book comes out, and that is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Now, the pitch I always hear for this book is lesbian necromancers in space, which just sounds so interesting. So I'm so excited to read this book. I've heard literally only good things about this series, And with the final book in the trilogy coming out this year, I'm super motivated to read it. So I will read you the actual Goodreads synopsis. The Emperor needs necromancers. The Ninth Necromancer needs a swordman. Gideon has a sword and some dirty magazines and no time for undead bullshit. Brought up by unfriendly, ossifying nuns, ancient retainers, and countless skeletons, Gideon is ready to abandon a life of servitude in an afterlife as a reanimated corpse. She packs up her swords, her shoes, and her dirty magazines and prepares to launch her daring escape. But her childhood nemesis won't set her free without a service. Harrowhawk, Reverend Daughter of the Ninth House and Bone Witch Extraordinaire, has been summoned into action. The Emperor has invited the heirs to each of his loyal houses to a deadly trial of wits and skill. If Harrowhawk succeeds, she will become an immortal, all-powerful servant of the resurrection, but no necromancer can ascend without their cavalier. Without Gideon's sword, Harrow will fail, and the Ninth House will die. Of course, some things are better left dead. So, it sounds really interesting. I'm excited to read it, and I'm super motivated to read it, so hopefully my copy of it will get in from the library soon. Okay, so the final book that I want to read is one that I technically don't need to read, and it's already a reread, but I want to. It's calling to my heart, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is absolutely one of my favorite books of all time. It is my favorite classic of all time, and Jane Austen is one of my favorite authors. I only haven't read, I think, one of her books, Mansfield Park, but I want to reread Pride and Prejudice. I adore this book, this story. I've consumed this story in so many medias. First, I read the Great Illustrated Classic. Then I saw the 2005 movie with Keira Knightley. Then I read the book. Then I watched the BBC adaptation that's like 6 hours, which is just absolute perfection. And now I want to reread the book. Pride and Prejudice is an amazing love story. It's the original enemies to lovers between Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy, as Elizabeth is very prejudiced towards Darcy because he is prideful and does not value her family. But of course they're gonna fall in love, and it's so good. I love this story, and I absolutely want to reread it, even though I probably shouldn't. Hopefully I will. I think Jane Austen's books are just so good, and they're so easy to get to. And not only is the romance between Elizabeth and Darcy fabulous, but all the side characters are amazing. You know, there's so many people who are just absolutely ridiculous and hilarious, but then you also have the side plots of Jane and Mr. Bingley and, Lydia and everything that happens with her. So I absolutely adore this book. It is one of my favorite books of all time, and I would love to reread it in July. So those are all the books I want to read in July. Some of them I will read, some of them I will not. We'll see what I end up reading. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Down below will be links to all the books I talked about, as well as my Goodreads and my Instagram if you want to follow me there. Subscribe to see more content from me, and I'll see you all in my next video very soon. Bye!